How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. It is a lovely Friday night here in the United States of America, and as I have nothing else to do anymore these days, we're going to do yet another best ball draft. Been working on the Scott Fishbowl draft all week. Nice to get back to a little bit more of normalcy here. So we're going to do a 12-team draft here on Drafters. Looks like we got the 3 slot, so we'll get to discuss early strategy in terms of what to do when you get one of the top 3 picks. Personally, I've done quite a few of these drafts thus far. I've really liked being pretty near the turns, and that goes either direction. I don't really care being around 7, 8, or 9, and that's probably how I normally feel. Most years, I just like being able to anticipate a little more what my next pick is going to be, and then I mean, once you get to your second pick, you kind of punt. You can't really plan on too much coming down the line when you have to wait 20 plus picks until your next pick is up. So this is gonna be pretty easy to start, and second round is where things start to get interesting because things can go very differently from draft to draft. So 7 seconds here. I'm gonna get started, but hit me up in the comment section. I'll try to pay attention to it this time. Last couple of times I've been forgetting, so I apologize. If you have questions, please let me know. But we're going to be following the rankings that we have outlined on our website at the Fantasy Addiction Network. You can click to sign up for free. There's a link in the description box below. That is interesting. I very rarely see Christian McCaffrey go second. Obviously, he's not going to fall to me at pick 3. We're going to take Ezekiel Elliott. That's pretty much a lock for me at this point. If I can't get McCaffrey or Barkley, it's going to be Elliott. And then if it's not Elliott, that's when I start getting a little bit interesting. I still have Kamara at number 4, but I have Miles Sanders at number 5 on my rankings. So at this point, we have our fingers crossed that another running back will make it back to us, and then we can start hammering wide receivers. But what I've noticed recently in the 3 slot, it hasn't always worked out too well in that second round. So might end up having to take a more wide receiver heavy approach if all the running backs are gone. I'm not really interested in. I've been warming up to Aaron Jones, but he hasn't really fallen this far a lot yet either. These drafts tend to be very running back heavy, as I'm expecting a lot of drafts to become draft season. I mean, we're basically just seeing everything shift backwards, and it's putting you in an interesting position. If you can get a stud running back, I'm actually pretty confident this year that this is a good year to take a running back in the first round. And if everyone around you is going heavy on running back, you can actually really hammer the wide receiver position. There's still some running backs in round 6 onwards that I would be comfortable with as my running back too. Obviously, ideally you'd start with someone from the second round, but if you can really shore up that wide receiver position, especially in a league like this where you have to start 3 guys and there's a flex spot. Running 4 wide receivers is something I typically try to do. Whoa, Kenyon Drake going to 7. I think that's the earliest I've seen Kenyon Drake go. So Kenyon Drake goes over Miles Sanders, Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Devontae Adams there at pick number 7. I mean, he's just been going up and up and up. I've really liked Kenyon Drake a lot this year, but I have very little exposure to him because of how much his price has gone up over the course of time. I almost got him in the Scott Fishbowl. I was super excited, and then I got sniped. I had the 1 slot, and he almost fell to me at the 212. He went at the 211, so then I had to pivot over, and I took Aaron Jones, which I'm comfortable with, but I would have rather had Kenyon Drake. So you see Miles Sanders go at pick 9. I mean, I'm probably as high as you can possibly be on Miles Sanders. Didn't expect him to bounce his way back to pick 22. The 3rd slot can be difficult because you're not getting the same uh, ceiling with a guy like Ezekiel Elliott or Saquon Barkley. I'm sorry, a guy like Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley when you draft Ezekiel Elliott, but you're still getting a pretty safe floor. But you'll notice here, at least the past couple times I've seen it, there's seems like the talent drop off, like that last tier, can kind of hurt a bit once it gets to pick 22. It just depends on if someone wants to jump up and grab a tight end, or if a quarterback goes early, that normally lets a running back or a wide receiver slip. But I like Chris Godwin a lot, but I'd rather like when Julio Jones falls that far, it's pretty easy. Or if a running back in that tier that I like falls that far, it's easy. But I mean, with these next six picks, the likelihood of that happening right now, I think I'm gonna have to kiss that goodbye. So we might try going tight end here and just seeing how the heck that goes. Um, Not entirely opposed to that strategy. I don't normally go tight end early in a 12 team draft because it really pigeonholes you into what you have to do to maneuver around the weakness at running back and wide receiver that you put yourself in by not taking a running back in the second round or a wide receiver in the second round. So we're going to wait and see. I don't think Aaron Jones is going to fall to me. That's the last running back I'd be willing to take of this tier. I've become a lot cooler on Clyde Edwards-Helaire as of recently. I do still like him as a player, but I don't think his upside is quite what it needs to be taking him in the second round. I think his ADP has gone a little out of control. Damian Williams is still going to get some work there, and even if Clyde Edwards-Helaire eventually gets used, which I think is bound to happen given that a team in a Super Bowl window drafted a running back in the first round, it would be stupid for them to not take and use him a lot. But I'm becoming a bit more bearish on what he could potentially do from a fantasy perspective this year. So as you can see right now, this is a very running back heavy draft. Like I said, I don't anticipate Aaron Jones being able to make it over the course of the next four picks. So we're probably going to have to go either George Kittle or wide receiver. I don't really consider taking Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes in these best ball drafts because you can get enough help at the quarterback position so late and you don't even have to worry about figuring out matchups. You just shore up a few guys together. So there Aaron Jones goes. We'll see if George Kittle makes it to us. Like I said, we might give that strategy a try if he falls. If not, we'll take a receiver and then probably take a running back in the third round. Let's see what happens. Actually, I need to move Clyde Edwards-Helaire down to my tier 6 guys there with Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon. That's really where I see him now. So we have a huge group of guys in tier 3 at receiver that I'd choose from. I really like Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Kenny Galladay, and Allen Robinson, all guys I would consider here. But George Kittle is there. Let's see who take at 20. Lamar Jackson. All right, one more pick. And Chris Godwin. You know what? Let's just try it. I'm curious. I haven't done it in a 12-teamer yet. Let's take George Kittle, and then we'll punt wide receiver down a little bit. And then when we get to our next pick, we'll decide between taking a receiver and taking Todd Gurley. I don't have much exposure to Todd Gurley right now. I think Todd Gurley is going to have a pretty solid year if he can stay healthy. That's a big if. But his upside is most certainly there. That team needs playmakers badly in the running back position. And they gave a lot of work to Devonta Freeman, who did nothing with it last year. So I think he has plenty of upside and is worth a third round pick. It feels a little gross doing it. Probably wouldn't take him over DJ Moore or Allen Robinson here, though, just considering how much of a tier up I feel those guys really are. And of course, Patrick Mahomes is always interesting, but it's just hard for me to ever come to grips with taking a quarterback this early on in a best ball draft. I'd rather just take a trio of guys later on. In smaller leagues, it becomes more of an incentive for me to do so. And there I don't even have to make the choice. So we're going to get one of DJ Moore or Allen Robinson. I personally prefer DJ Moore. I have a lot more DJ Moore in most of my drafts. So If he goes here, perfect. I'm not as upset about it because now I can actually spread my exposure around. We'll take Allen Robinson. So we start out running back, tight end, receiver. Again, not something I've done a lot, uh, and we'll see how this ends up turning out. Little nervous about what this would do to our running backs, especially because if we wait until the sixth round, it's going to get pretty ugly, coming all the way back around because we'll be in the end of the sixth round. But we're just going to take this draft as it comes to us and see how it goes. So you see Clyde Edwards-Helaire go right after us. Mike Evans. Mike Evans' ADP has been all over the board. I've seen him go as early as the second round and as late as the fourth. It's very interesting to me. I don't typically take him too much. I don't really see that kind of a target as being someone that Tom Brady is going to flock to a lot, but I could just be naive. I feel like Chris Godwin is going to be more of his Julian Edelman type, and then he has a strong tandem of tight ends there. So I think this, if there's was ever going to be a year that Mike Evans didn't break 1,000 receiving yards, it definitely could be this year. Um, Not that he can't do it, and if that defense isn't very good, I think that Tom Brady can sustain a high volume passing offense, giving enough room for both Godwin and Evans there. But given the choice between the two, definitely take Godwin this year and probably every year as long as those two remain on the same team. I see Mark Andrews go. Mark Andrews, I don't think I have any Mark Andrews in any of these drafts thus far, and it's not that I hate him. I just can never get myself to pull the trigger on him because I don't see a massive jump up from him to a guy like Zach Ertz, and I feel like there's a massive drop off between George Kittle and Travis Kelsey. So normally, if I miss out on Kittle or Kelsey, I'm normally too bummed out to take a tight end for a while, and I just wait until like that later tier of guys that you can get the super athletic, high upside tier of Mike Gesicki, Hawkinson, guys like that, that I would rather just make a pair with rather than take a Mark Andrews early. So I feel like to me that's always a strategy that I'm probably gonna end up avoiding because I'd rather have guys like Juju Smith-Schuster or Adam Thielen or Calvin Ridley or Robert Woods that always seem to excite me a bit more than Mark Andrews. So Melvin Gordon goes. I was kind of hoping he would fall, but that was probably a little bit of a pipe dream. Same thing for a guy like Jonathan Taylor. I have very little Leonard Fournette. I'm not very excited about his prospects this year, but I probably should be because he was absolutely dominant last year for fantasy. Even though he only put up 3 touchdowns, he was getting opportunities left and right. I think he had the third most touches of any running back. Chris Thompson is washed, so it's not like he's going to steal a significant portion of his targets. Not that Leonard Fournette did much with his targets. But I mean, as a running back too, if I'm able to get him in the second round, it might be worth it. We'll see what the receiver position looks like at that point. Yeah, if I could get a guy like Fournette and then grab either Robert Woods or DJ Chark in the fifth, that would make me happy. Because I don't think Jonathan Taylor is going to fall to us. I was reading an article earlier about James Conner that people were saying, should you be more worried about James Conner considering his past health issues recovering from cancer and COVID? If he catches COVID, will he be out longer than other players? The fact that we even have to have that conversation is this year could be a massive headache for anything other than best ball leagues. And honestly, guys, if you're looking to do some drafts, I feel like best ball might end up being the most fun that you'll end up having with fantasy this year because at least you don't have to deal with the headache every single week of trying to figure out who to put into your starting lineup. You just got to build a roster, and then each and every single week, it puts the best players into your lineup. So that might end up being the only real way to play fantasy this year. And I've already seen people even commentate and talk about like, hey, should we make our leagues best ball leagues, and I don't hate it. It seems really weird, but I definitely don't hate it. So, um, get in on some of these. I think I have a link in the description if you guys want to get like a 50% bonus. If you're new to drafters, you can sign up with that link. But yeah, it's going to be a really, really crazy year. And hopefully, you guys play in leagues with commissioners that are actually thinking about all this stuff. Having IR slots that you can use for people that potentially test positive for COVID-19 the day of, that's going to be like super important to maintain the ability to actually play without ripping your hair out. Man, so this room is really running back heavy, which is pushing me to go receiver here. Robert Woods doesn't usually fall this far. Should not have said his name considering I have one more pick. Robert Woods is the last guy in the receiver tier for me. I know a lot of people have him and Cooper Kupp ranked right next to each other, but I really didn't like what I saw last year when the Rams switched to doing more 12 personnel and they took Cooper Kupp out of the slot. Cooper Kupp did not perform well when he had to play on the outside, so thank you, person right before me, for taking the wrong Rams wide receiver. We're going to take Robert Woods. So we got Allen Robinson and Robert Woods as our wide receiver 1 and 2. There's really not any running backs, in my opinion, worth taking this early on. We're going to really punt the position now. Why am I doing this? I always forget to change it for you guys to be able to see the whole draft there. That should be better for you. Now you can see how this draft is looking from a whole board perspective. So we got this guy going insanely robust running back. A little bit of zero running back here, taking Le'Veon Bell later. Don't have a lot of Terry McLaurin either. I like him a lot. Um, just one of those guys that always seem to take someone over him at the same time. I'm becoming a little bit more hesitant to take a guy like Tyler Lockett if Antonio Brown does end up signing in Seattle. That's going to be really bad for Tyler Lockett. Let's get a little more exposure to Terry McLaurin and take him here. So now we got our trio of wide receivers here. We're going it's a stupid name, but we're going a little bit what we call modified zero running back. Okay, so I don't understand. Maybe you guys can explain this strategy to me. I don't know why you would take Clyde Edwards-Helaire and then Damian Williams in the fifth. If you're playing in a best ball league, you're disincentivized from taking a handcuff because the whole point of drafting a guy is hoping that he hits his ceiling because you need to significantly outperform every other teammate because there's no waiver wire, so you can't really make up for any mistakes that you make. So if you do this, you're just capping your upside. So let's say Damian Williams comes out and he's the guy and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is junk. Well, you just wasted your third round pick, and sure, you made up for it in the fifth. But if you take Clyde and then you don't take Damian and Damian hits, okay, well, then this was a wasted draft. But it's still a wasted draft if you lost a third round pick because you could have taken a guy like A.J. Brown or Juju Smith-Schuster, Odell Beckham, and then taken Damian Williams in the fifth round. So I don't really see the logic in taking a handcuff unless you get a guy in like round 15 or later where there's not as much chance of you actually landing someone that's worth a darn. So that one doesn't make any sense to me, but I mean, to each his own, right? This also doesn't, I don't get the two tight end strategy, especially in a league like this where we're not doing tight end premium. If this was a tight end premium league, I'd be a little bit more sympathetic to it. But taking Kelsey and Mark Andrews, would you rather start Mark Andrews or would you rather start Juju Smith-Schuster or A.J. Brown or Adam Thielen or Melvin Gordon? I'd rather start all of those guys. So if you're going to take Travis Kelsey, you're really putting yourself in a bind by taking another tight end because now you're underwater on wide receiver and running back. And now you take a quarterback in the fifth round. So coming into round six, you only have one running back and one receiver, but you have to field at least five guys each and every single week in those spots. So you're going to have some pretty dicey decisions going on later. So I just don't like putting myself in that kind of a spot. I really wish we knew if Antonio Brown was going to play this year. It'd be really nice to know that like sooner rather than later, because I don't mostly not necessarily even from like drafting him. I draft him in almost every best ball league that I can because of his upside. It's insane, but it just it's going to ruin the draft capital of somebody else, and that annoys me. So, example, like I said earlier, like, well, now it's looking like he might sign with the Seahawks. So, if you draft Tyler Lockett, you're screwed if Antonio Brown signs there. Or if you're drafting Marquise Brown and he goes to the Ravens, that's going to cap his upside. Or if you're drafting like Brandon Ayuk and he goes to the 49ers, like wherever he goes, he's going to completely railroad the other receiver that you took way too early on. So having that kind of a landmine is, I guess, the reason why you typically wait to do drafts. And obviously, you can get people at values now because you can typically get Antonio Brown in round 14 and beyond. And if he were to sign tomorrow, he'd probably jump up to, top 6, 7 rounds unless he gets a massive suspension, which at this point, we don't even know what type of a suspension he would get, even if he's going to get any suspension whatsoever. I mean, a lot of people assumed that Tyreek Hill was going to see a pretty massive suspension last year, and he missed 0 games. So at this point, the NFL is kind of a crapshoot as to what we're expecting to see from a suspension standpoint. So I don't really know what to think uh, in terms of Antonio Brown. Like I said, I just like taking him um, later on, but I guess that's the price you pay, right? If you're able to get a guy like Antonio Brown later, you have to be willing to take the penalty of potentially drafting a landmine earlier in the draft. All right, I'm curious to see what this guy does. Coming into round 6, he only has one wide receiver and one running back, and he takes another quarterback. All right. So we got a two tight end, two quarterback strategy where you can only start one of quarterback and you can start another tight end in your flex, but it's not tight end premium. So you're gonna wait until round 7 to draft either a running back or wide receiver. I don't know what this guy is doing. Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna throw crap at people, but that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Um, but hey, to each their own. Makes it a little bit easier on me. T.Y. Hilton is still here. He's the last guy that I have in that tier. 4 picks left. I need another running back. Nope, T.Y. Hilton is gone. So let's see what happens here with running back. I took J.K. Dobbins in my Scott Fishbowl league over Darius Geis. I think Darius Geis has a higher ceiling, but J.K. Dobbins could be a complete smash, especially if Mark Ingram is junk. Um, I'm in a bit of a bind because these guys next to me don't have running backs. Well, they have two, but I think I'll take Dobbins just to prevent the guy from slot 1 from doing the Ingram Dobbins stack. Again, probably not the most strategic move, but if I'm playing game theory here, I feel like I have a better chance of getting Geist to come back to me than I do Dobbins. So, yeah, so Will Fuller goes. We're going to take J.K. Dobbins as a running back too, and then cross our fingers that we get Darius Geist to fall back to us. If Darius Geist doesn't fall back, there's not a receiver or a running back that I love in this spot, and I'd probably go quarterback, assuming Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson is still here. So let's see. There's Darren Waller. And there's Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was the other guy I was thinking, what is with these two quarterback Well, kind of glad I took George Kittle early because all these people taking quarterbacks, limiting their upside at the other positions. At least I have a top tier tight end and a really good trio of receivers. And we'll get Darius Geis now. Screw Raheem Mostert. Not interested in that mess at all. So now I'm excited about this team thus far. Got some pretty good upside here with Dobbins and Geis. One of those guys hits, and I have a really good running back too to go along with Ezekiel Elliott. I have an upper echelon tight end with George Kittle, who honestly, guys, with Debo Samuel being hurt, I think George Kittle is going to be the number one tight end this year. I have him ranked above Travis Kelsey. I've been going back and forth on that, but I think George Kittle is going to be the number one tight end this year, and then Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, and Terry McLaurin, all guys who could end up finishing the top 12 at the receiver position. So pretty excited about this start. We need to grab a quarterback at some point, but right now I'm still a little bit more concerned about making sure our running backs and wide receivers are filled up. Um, we've only got 3 teams with quarterbacks, even though 5 have been selected. That's interesting to me. Deshaun Watson needs to go. There we go. I'm okay with taking quarterbacks in the 7th round. I like this tier of I I have it separated. I have Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott in a tier on their own, but I'm beginning to warm up to the idea of bumping Russell Wilson up into that tier as well, especially just with the looming prospect of potentially seeing Antonio Brown go there. Like that would vault Russell Wilson to my quarterback 3 right next to Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray. So but I'm okay with taking a quarterback in round 6 or 7 in a best ball league. I still don't necessarily understand this. Okay, this guy has actually been more interesting to me than even the draft that I'm doing, so I'm just curious. So we take one running back and one receiver, and I love Devonta Adams, and I love Travis Kelsey. So don't get me wrong, like he doesn't have bad players on his team, but you have to field 2 running backs and 3 receivers in a flex each and every single week. And at this point, not sure what he's going to follow this up with. He's going to make us wait 60 seconds and let it auto pick because he feels that he's grabbed all the players that he needs. He should take if he takes Marlon Mack here, I'm just going to laugh. Okay, he takes Ronald Jones. So I feel like I get a lot of hate for how much I dislike Ronald Jones this year, but I don't understand Ronald Jones at all. He had like 4 good games last year and barely was able to outtouch Peyton Barber. He wasn't drafted by the current regime, so there's no attachment between Bruce Arians and Ronald Jones. They drafted Keyshawn Vaughn. They see Keyshawn Vaughn as someone that could be a 3 down back, and he profiles as more of a complete running back in the NFL than does Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is not very good in pass protection. Tom Brady is not very forgiving with running backs that aren't good at pass protection. He's not good in the passing game. And yes, Dario Gumbawale could end up spoiling it and just end up being the Naheem Hines of the Buccaneers. But I don't get the appeal to Ronald Jones. I love just taking Keyshawn Vaughn and playing the upside game. And I really hope it stays this way into draft season because I would much rather have someone else take Ronald Jones so I can take Keyshawn Vaughn later. There was a point in time where Keyshawn Vaughn was going ahead of Ronald Jones, and that was annoying. So hopefully that stays this way because I don't plan on ever taking Ronald Jones. Actually, surprised Tevin Coleman hasn't gone yet with the potential of Raheem Mostert getting traded. I feel like a lot of people are more interested in Tevin Coleman now, which watch them just trade for another running back or watch it beat Michael Hasty that ends up being the running back to own there. So no guarantee that Tevin Coleman sees any significant touches, but I definitely consider him if he fell down to pick 94. Debo Samuel feels like such a trap right now because there's never a spot where I actually really feel comfortable drafting him because of that foot injury. But at the same point, he could just be fine the back half of the year and be an absolute value getting him in the eighth round. So every time like it's coming up on my pick here, I'm like kind of secretly hoping someone else takes Debo Samuel, so I don't have to make that choice. Especially since I already have George Kittle, don't need to like double up my 49ers shares here. DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers have also seen their ADP begin to skyrocket, which I assumed at some point it would. I mean, they're both probably going to be pretty productive running backs. There was a point in time where you could get both of them around the sixth, seventh round. So seeing them go into the fifth round is it makes sense. The one nice thing about having Kittle and having a tight end early is I don't even have to think about taking any of these middle tier tight ends at this point, like a Rob Gronkowski or Mike Gesicki. Like, yes, I think that they'll end up doing fine, but I don't even have to like worry about it, and I can just focus on the other positions. Which obviously it's making you have to focus on them a little bit more, so kind of a catch 22. But I might just double tap running back here again and just say screw it. Just take Keyshawn Vaughn and Tevin Coleman. Jalen Rager has seen his ADP jump up like 4 rounds because of the comments that Deshaun Jackson made, which is hilarious from a fantasy perspective. Like, let's take the politics out of it. What Deshaun Jackson said was despicable. I don't condone it at all, and I'm glad that it's being addressed. But it's pretty obvious to me at this point that the Eagles aren't going to do anything other than what they've already done. They fined him and they told him he needs to work to basically make up for his transgression, and he's showing that he's trying to do that. Whether or not people believe him is another story. But just because of that news, Jalen Rager has gone from like a 13th, 12th round pick, and now he's going up in like 8th, ninth round. And on the flip side, Deshaun Jackson has gone from like a 12th round pick to like forgotten. I got him in the 17th round of the Scott Fishbowl, and I'm like, guys, he hasn't been released. It doesn't. There aren't any signs of him being released. There's the reason why is because the Eagles need him really badly. They don't have a deep field stretcher, and they saw how much they needed him after he got hurt last year. So I don't know. I've been a Rager guy for a long time. I have a very high ownership of Rager in these drafters drafts, but I'm not taking him in the eighth round. I mean, just a few weeks ago they were talking about Jalen Rager might not even start as like a starting wide receiver in the first couple weeks. Like it might take him a few weeks before he's actually receiving significant touches. And there we go. Now we don't have to worry about Debo Samuel as we asked for. So I think we're going to take Tevin Coleman here, as we kind of talked about. I think Tevin Coleman still carries pretty good upside. He played most of last year on a high ankle sprain, part of the reason for his inefficiencies. And I have too much Darius Slayton in my life. I don't know if that's possible. Is it possible to have too much Darius Slayton in your life? Okay, so we now see this guy has taken 3 quarterbacks and he only has 2 receivers. So okay, I whatever. Like this, this, I don't understand the strategy of these guys. Not worried about quarterback yet. Like maybe next round I'll have to, but um, mm, I really like Darius Slayton. I also really like Keyshawn Vaughn. Pretty comfortable with my running backs at this point. Let's take the upside with a guy like Darius Slayton. Last year he gave multiple weeks where he just completely won your week. So if he can have 4 explosive weeks for me, that's all I really need. I would have considered Matt Ryan there, but whatever. It's probably it for wide receiver for me for a while because there's still a lot of guys, high upside guys I like taking in the later round. So probably look at quarterback and running back here for a little bit. We'll take a high upside tight end and then just finish the draft off just taking a bunch of receivers. But I'm liking this team this far. What do you guys think between George Kittle, Ezekiel Elliott, Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, J.K. Dobbins, Darius Geist, Tevin Coleman, and Darius Slayton? And I'm still really interested to see how this guy's team ends up coming out. This guy over here too. I mean, he does have Saquon Barkley. He's going to need to start taking a lot of receivers here pretty soon. Which honestly, I will give him at least when it comes to best ball drafts, receiver is the easiest position to just kind of like punt till later because you can just grab guys in the later rounds that can just do enough to get on your roster a couple weeks out of the year. If you just have enough of those guys, just cobble together some receiver production. So as long as you have strong production at all the other positions, you can typically escape with not targeting receiver early. It's not necessarily optimal because when we look at projection fragility, receivers tend to be the easiest to project where they're going to finish. So by foregoing receivers in the first couple of rounds, not that he necessarily did by taking Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen, but we can typically project pretty closely who the top 24 wide receivers are going to be. So it's kind of a back and forth. I don't hate punting receiver. What I don't like is the fact that his running back three is Kerryon Johnson, and he has 3 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league. That's the earliest I've seen Zach Moss go. Um, I don't hate it. Zach Moss is supposedly going to get the Frank Gore role, whatever that ends up meaning, for the Buffalo Bills. But I mean, Zach Moss is a similar profile as Devin Singletary, and Devin Singletary surprised last year. I do think the Bills will have a pretty decent run game, and I think Zach Moss will end up being the reason why I won't own any of Josh Allen because he'll probably get a lot more of the goal line carries. Frank Gore wasn't able to do anything on the goal line last year, so don't hate Zach Moss. Maybe a little early for him here, but don't hate it. So you still have 4 teams that don't have a quarterback at this point. 5 teams. Sorry, I wasn't even including myself. Duh. So 5 teams that don't have a quarterback, and we have multiple teams with 2 quarterbacks and one guy with 3 quarterbacks. So the quarterback strategy is going to get interesting here. Just reading the room, if we can get around this turn without people going too quarterback heavy, the next 2 picks, it might make the most sense just to take whoever we can get in that tier. We still got guys like Matthew Stafford, Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Ryan Tannehill. If you get 2 of those guys, I'd be fine, and then just take like a Teddy Bridgewater a few rounds later. So fingers crossed. This feels so much different than doing the Scott Fish Bowl, where like the quarterbacks are just going all over the freaking place way early. I fear that he might double tap quarterback here. It would actually be the smart play if he took 2 quarterbacks here and just ran away. I'm hoping he doesn't, but it would be the smart move. And he didn't, so that leaves one more guy for us. At least these guys all take their third quarterback. Alright, someone sell me on Sony Michel as well. I don't understand this one. Last year he finished as a running back 3, and this year he gets Cam Newton, who's going to vulture a bunch of red zone touchdowns. So what is the upside of Sony Michel? I mean, maybe he ends up getting the touchdowns if Cam Newton doesn't take the goal line carries, but I don't know. I'm not feeling it with Sony Michel at all. Jerry Judy, Rob Gronkowski. I'm still waiting for his ADP jump. Like, I thought as soon as he came back, he'd be like a fifth round pick, but he's still living in the double digit rounds. I think all we need is like a training a video of Tom Brady throwing to Robert Gronkowski and like hitting him on a deep pass or something and having him run over a defender. So we're just waiting. We're waiting for that to happen for his ADP spike to happen. Also, can I just say I'm so thankful that Cam Newton is back because now we actually have another quarterback that we can draft that has high upside. Like, very, very, very thankful for Cam Newton. All right, we're gonna take the last guy in our tier here, Matthew Stafford. Quarterbacks are just starting to get a little thin, and I noticed that there's a couple of guys that still don't have one, so we're just gonna double down and force the issue. So it's between Jared Goff and Cam Newton for me. I think I might be able to get Cam Newton later. I'm not sure what his ADP has been doing as of recent. So we're going to take Jared Goff. Now we have two quarterbacks. See if we can start a quarterback run, get these guys scurrying a little bit at the quarterback position. Yeah, Michael, I'm with you there. Like, Singletary and Moss, I mean, so just based on a price perspective, I'll go Moss every time because Singletary is going in like the fifth, sixth round still, but Zach Moss is typically going in the double digit rounds. This is the earliest that I've seen him go. And like we have to remember that the reason why Devin Singletary ended the season on such a high note was because Frank Gore was getting taken off the field. But in the beginning of the year, for the majority of the season, like Frank Gore was still getting a pretty decent amount of carries. I know Devin Singletary missed some time as well, so maybe that had a lot to do with it. But if Zach Moss gets Frank Gore's carries, he's probably going to be able to do a little bit more than Frank Gore is able to do, being that Frank Gore is 80 years old. So I don't I don't want Devin Singletary at all in redraft. And Zach Moss to me is more a guy you just target later if you go high wide receivers and like punt the running back position for a bit. So if you're gonna take one, I would take Zach Moss just because of the price, but I'm not actively targeting either guy. Like I don't know if I've drafted any. I don't think I've drafted Devin Singletary at all in any of these drafts, and I may have only drafted Zach Moss like one or two times. So personally, I would just recommend staying away. But if you do like a zero running back approach where you take a lot of receivers and a tight end early, I do think that Zach Moss at least gives you some upside. for a guy that you can get, 10th round onwards. So there's Cam Newton. I guess his ADP is going to start sitting around round 11. Probably should have taken Cam Newton over Jared Goff. I'm regretting my decision a little bit, but I do think Jared Goff has plenty of upside. That people will remind me that Jared Goff had a little bit of a down year last year, but he finished the season on a really high note once they switched to 12 personnel. I still don't get, so that's another argument I don't understand. I feel a lot of analysts are making it that, oh, well, the Rams don't want to run 12 personnel. They're not going to do it. I'm like, okay, but did their offensive line improve? The reason that they moved to 12 personnel is because their offensive line was dog crap and Jared Goff was getting absolutely destroyed, and Todd Gurley wasn't able to run anywhere, so they had to pull another tight end in just to give Jared Goff a second to breathe and throw the ball. So if that worked, because their offense was way more efficient over the back half of the year once they went to 12 personnel, why wouldn't they keep doing it? Like, what is the logic for saying that the Rams are going to go back to doing 11 personnel when it wasn't working? So I'm bullish on Goff for that reason alone. I think that he can return a decent bit of value where he's getting drafted right now because I mean he still throws the ball over 600 times a year. Yeah, they did lose Brandon Cooks, but if Tyler Higbee is the truth, then I think they'll be fine. And that defense is also getting way worse too. They had to let a lot of guys go, and they haven't really replaced it with anyone of note. So I don't know. I think the Rams are going to be a garbage team that has to score a lot of points this year. So I still like Jared Goff. I'm just trying to make myself feel better because I probably should have taken Cam Newton, but oh well. I got Cam Newton in the Scott Fistbowl, so that makes me happy. So we see Ryan Tannehill go. It's a good thing we took the two quarterbacks when we did because the next tier is getting kind of gross. We still might try to grab a third guy later, but even if we finish this draft with just two quarterbacks, I'm comfortable with Stafford and Goff. I think those two guys together can put up enough points for me to go along with my strong core of receivers and George Kittle and Elliott. At some point, I need to take a backup tight end. Don't know that we're there yet. Too many running backs with the week 8 bye, but I don't care. I'm really high on Duke Johnson, especially in best ball. Last year he had multiple games where he had really good weekly ceiling, and I think that'll continue this year because David Johnson rather. I don't think he's healthy, but we'll see. So Duke Johnson is still there. That's probably going to be our pick, and then we'll start hitting the receivers a little bit more. Unless we take Hawkinson, I might go running back in Hawkinson and then just finish up with a bunch of receivers. That's probably what we'll do. Because there's not really any receivers that are screaming, I need to take him right now. Sammy Watkins was the one, but he just went. I love Sammy Watkins in best ball this year. He's so flippin' cheap. Oh my gosh, darn it! That's what I get for saying his name. Well, um, we'll do something different. We'll pivot and we'll take Boston Scott because Boston Scott. I believe in Miles Sanders this year, but I do think Boston Scott is angling to take that Darren Sproles role, and that has standalone value, especially in best ball leagues. He's going to get plenty of targets, so he'll have plenty of weeks where he gets 5, 6 receptions for 60 plus yards and maybe a touchdown. So a guy you can get in the 12th round in best ball and not have to ever worry about deciding when to start him. We need a fifth running back to round out what we have here. So, do I think Higbee is real? I'm skeptical. He feels like Ebron did last year. I don't think he's Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron, for one, Eric Ebron, his issue has always been health, right? Um, Higby is weird. Higby is a very interesting character because nobody even knew who he was until he had a chance to play. And when we look at his player profiler like report, he didn't do anything in the combine. He wasn't really that stellar of an athlete in college, so he feels like a trap. At the same point, we're going to take Hawkinson here because I don't like what's happening to the tight ends. Uh, at the same point, what he did last year was unreal. And I know you're not supposed to just pay attention to watching game film. Like, we have to use analytics. But watching Tyler Higbee play, the guy was a beast. He was an absolute monster. And I don't know, like they say that, oh well, Gerald Everett was hurt, but yeah, I get that. But why would you go back to what wasn't working? The offense worked so much better once they were using Tyler Higbee the way that they were. So I don't hate Higbee. What I do want to happen is I want his ADP to continue to fall. So he went in the eighth round in this draft. I've seen him drop even to like the ninth round. That's where I want to take the chance on Higby. And what you do if you take Higby in the ninth, just make sure you get Gesicki or Hawkinson, because as long as you still take a high upside younger guy that has a chance at breaking out this year, if Higby completely falls apart, you're fine. But his upside is what Mark Andrews did last year. So I'd rather take a chance on a guy with that much upside if I can get him cheap enough. If you have to take him in the sixth round, it's not worth it. I'm not taking Higbee over Dobbins. I'm not taking Higbee over Marvin Jones or Darius Geis. But I'll take Higbee over Tevin Coleman. I'll take Higbee over Marlon Mack. I'll take Higbee over Tariq Cohen or Sterling Shepard. So I think the question with Higbee is obviously there's risk. And obviously there's not a guarantee that he's going to be anywhere near where he was last year. But at the same point, the potential is there, and on potential alone, I'm willing to take the risk if the price is right. So not sure if that answers your question. We need some receivers now. I love these best ball drafts because I mean you could still get, oh, we should take Antonio Brown, shouldn't we? I can't not do it, guys. Every time I see Antonio Brown and it's like 14th, 15th round, I'm like, he's gonna sign somewhere. And I know it's stupid, but I keep reminding myself that Tyreek Hill didn't get any games taken off last year, even though the evidence was pretty damning. And nothing's been confirmed with Antonio Brown other than the fact that he's a psychopath, but he's still really good at football. So if someone signs him, I don't know. I think that he might end up playing. And if he plays, he's going to be an absolute beast. So let let's see if I can convince one of these other guys in the draft room to take him. Let's revisit what this guy's done. So he's taken Kelsey and Andrews and Murray and Prescott. Let's see what he's done with his running back core. So now he has Ronald Jones and Zach Moss and Chase Edmonds. That's actually not the worst. I'm not as disgusted with his running backs as I thought they were going to be. Chase Edmonds obviously needs Kenya Drake to not work out for him to hit massively, but I think Zach Moss will have decent upside. I don't like Ronald Jones at all, but we won't get to that. I like Jalen Rager, but I think that was a little bit of a reach to take him in the eighth round, especially as your wide receiver too. I don't like Jerry Jeudy this year at all. I think that's going to be a very low pass volume team. I don't really care for Golden Tate that much. I do like Denzel Mims a bit, but still, his wide receiver core is freaking me out. But fortunately for him, he has a good quarterback and tight end tandem, and he has Devontae Adams. So I don't know. We'll see. I want to revisit this league at the end and see how he ended up doing. But that's not a strategy I typically recommend taking. But we'll see if it ends up working out for him. Okay, Teddy Bridgewater was like the last quarterback I was actually considering taking. So I think we're going to end up sticking with two quarterbacks. There's not really anyone else here that I really care about. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo, but I need some receivers. We do still have. I mean, we still have 7 rounds to go. We'll see what happens here. But if I take Antonio Brown, I need to take at least an extra receiver in case he is a complete zero. Doggone it. He took Antonio Brown from me, you jerk. You jerk. I wanted him. I needed him. Oh well. Mm, who do we have ranked next? Alright, so I think we're gonna take Paris Campbell next. So there goes Jimmy Garoppolo. I just don't really like any of these other quarterbacks here. They don't really give me any warm and fuzzy feelings. So I think we're going to end up this draft with just two quarterbacks. But let's go Paris Campbell. Really like his upside as the slot receiver there in Indianapolis. We need to keep targeting some high upside receivers here. I don't know how I feel about Alan Lazard. His decent upside. I don't think I've taken him in any draft thus far. Hmm. Not really anyone else I'm excited about taking. Screw it. I want to at least have one share of Alan Lazard. He might have 3 weeks that he ends up placing in my roster for me. So now we at least have 6 receivers, 5 running backs, 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks. So at this point, we're just going to take the luxury pick, whoever ends up falling. These drafts are a little bit longer now that they go 20 rounds. Allows you to shore up things a little bit more, but I mean, maybe Derek Carr. Let me see if I can talk myself into Derek Carr. So they add Henry Ruggs, they add Brian Edwards, they add Jason Witten, they add Lynn Bowden. Josh Jacobs coming into his second year, still a good offensive line. It's a make or break year for him. If he doesn't do anything this year, he's pretty much a goner. Dwayne Haskins too, you could talk yourself up into. Maybe I just do the Dwayne Haskins Terry McLaurin stack because I'm sadistic and why not? I like that. AJ Dillon, Josh Kelly, rookie running backs stack there. Both of those guys have decent upside. I think Josh Kelly a little bit more than AJ Dillon, but we'll see how that ends up turning out. I don't know what this is. Oh, Jerick McKinnon. I don't know how I feel about Jerick McKinnon. I was super in on him a few years ago, and, well, obviously he crushed all of our hopes and dreams by getting hurt yet again. So watch it just be Jeff Wilson or JaMychal Hasty that ends up being the running back there. Could also take a rookie quarterback. We could take Tua. Don't actually hate that. Drew Lock goes along with Gardner Minshew. This guy waited forever for quarterbacks. I think he waited too long. So I don't hate Gardner Minshew at all, but in a best ball draft, you really want to at least ensure you have a shot at picking a guy that can hit in the top five. And I don't think Gardner Minshew or Drew Lock really give that to you. So I think he may have played the game a little bit too hardcore. Corey Davis. Oh, Corey Davis. Well, watch Corey Davis's stock drive up. AJ Brown posted a tweet today that indicates that he might sit out this season if he's asked to have to stay away from his family. So if players like, let's have an honest sidebar. If we get to the point that players are choosing between playing and seeing their families, we're gonna get it's gonna get ugly really quickly, really quickly, and it's not gonna make for a very fun year at all. And I get it. I can't really have an opinion on the subject because I'm just a guy that sits at home and plays fantasy football, and I'm not the one that's putting my life on the line. So these guys obviously need to make the choice that's best for them. But boy, oh boy, am I not really excited for what that looks like if we have players that just start opting out of the entire season. Like, this is going to be the strangest year. So I think I said it earlier in the stream, but for your guys' seasonal leagues that you play in with friends, just promise me you'll have a discussion with them over how to handle these things fairly and try to think of some creative ways to not have to deal with some of the insanity that's going to happen. Make sure you have IR slots for people who test positive the day of, and you need to go grab another guy, but you don't have anyone to drop. Possibly even doing like best ball lineups. Like, you're just gonna have to get creative if you actually want to have a fun and not heart attack inducing fantasy season this year. See if this guy takes a third quarterback. It would be smart too. Does everyone have two at this point? Nope, he took Chenault. 3-3-2-2-2-3-2-2-2-2. Yeah, everyone has two quarterbacks at this point. I actually hope that they expand some of their roster construction drafts here. I'm doing a draft with another analyst later this week, where we're doing a two quarterback league. I think that would actually make these drafts a little bit more interesting because the quarterback position in superflex leagues really makes the draft a lot more challenging. Especially, I just noticed from the Scott Fish draft we just did. I mean, drafting quarterbacks in the fifth round is equivalent to like what you're drafting these guys in like the 14th round. Your home league is extending rosters to 25 to try to prepare. So I get that as a strategy. My only fear with taking the bench spots up too much is you're going to make the waiver wire basically like a nuclear war zone where there's absolutely nothing there. So having an IR spot that you're able to put people that are, uh, you know, out for the week will only free up those roster spots if someone has the sickness, and then you can go grab a guy off the waiver, and then after they're back, they have to drop them back into the waiver pool. So that's kind of why I'm a little more in favor of the IR slots than just increasing your bench. Now, if you're talking like a dynasty league, then yeah, 25 men is fine. But in a redraft league, 25 men is going to be, I mean, you can already tell, like, we're in round 16 right now, and I can still find guys that I like, but they're not very useful. So, like, the best running back right now is like Damian Harris or Rashad Penny, and we're only in round 16. So imagine going another 10 rounds with these types of names. You're going to have some very ugly back half of the roster. And then what if you have a guy that has seven people that test positive in a single day, but all of his backups aren't actually people that can help him? So like if you have, I mean, for example, if you have Justice Hill and the guy that has Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, they both test positive. If he doesn't have Justice Hill, then Justice Hill doesn't help him. So that's my only fear with increasing the rosters too much is it doesn't actually help the people that need it the most. It's it just um, makes it just makes the waiver wire unusable. We're gonna take Damian Harris. I don't think I have any Damian Harris up to this point, and I just don't like Sony Michel. So I think Damian Harris has a chance at getting a more significant role this year. So I'm done with quarterback. I'm thought about taking another tight end, but not all that interested in any of the guys that are left. Maybe Dawson Knox, but he has the same bye week as George Kittle, so I typically try to avoid that in best ball leagues because it doesn't really help you. CJ Uzoma maybe. We have six running backs now, probably done there because there's not really anyone else that I think even has even good upside in a best ball league. So we're probably just going to keep taking high upside wide receivers to round out this draft. Random tier 7 tight end run happening right now with Chase Sternberger, Dawson Knox, and Greg Olsen. So, am I completely wrong on Greg Olsen? I don't really see him as valuable at all this year, and I guess that's because I anticipate them using a lot of Jacob Hollister and Will Disley when he comes back. But maybe Greg Olsen is the best valued tight end in the draft right now because nobody seems to want anything to do with him. So can you pick up 9 people as soon as the season is or as soon as the draft is over though? Like is it you can always have 25 people? Like what's the requirement to prevent people from just hoarding all of the backup running backs if you have 25 roster slots? That's all I'm getting at. Because like again in a dynasty league, you can kind of prepare for that by trading future roster picks if you end up in a hole. But in a redraft league, you literally have to trade players for players because there's no other commodity that you can trade. So it becomes very difficult trading for backup running backs if your guy is sick because now that other team has like a huge asset and you're going to have to spend way too much to get a backup running back. And yeah, you could just say, well, you should just draft your backup, but I mean, if your league mates are vicious at all, they'll make sure that that doesn't happen. I mean, that would be my strategy if I was playing in a league with 25 people. I'd just be like hoarding, hoarding, hoarding backup running backs everywhere I could. Call me evil or vicious. I don't care. I'm mad that Steven Sims went. I like Steven Sims a lot. I just got him in the Scott Fishbowl as well. Um, Russell Gage is interesting. Mohamed Sanu is interesting to me. Andy Isabella, Jalen Hurd. Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine what that waiver wire would look like. Because I mean, again, we're here. This is a 12 team league. We're not even through the 18th round yet, and the best receiver I'm looking at right now is Russell Gage. Another pet peeve of mine is when we get to the end of the draft and it still takes people like 30 years to make their pick. Like, there's not that many people to choose from anymore. What could possibly be the deliberation? But then again, I'm sure a lot of these people don't spend as much time looking at these names as I do. So, ooh, Dan Arnold. Okay, uh, Dan Arnold is interesting to me from a dynasty perspective. I would never recommend drafting him in a redraft league, but he did have one really nice game last year for the Cardinals, and they did let was it Max Williams? I think they let go. So Dan Arnold is actually pretty interesting guy. I know the Cardinals ran four wide receiver sets almost all the time last year, so there wasn't many tight ends on the field. But I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to use the tight end a little bit more heading into 2020. So keep that name in the back of your mind. It sounds like a mailman, but um, I think Dan Arnold could actually end up being fantasy relevant at some point. So hear me now, quote me later. This guy took so many rookie receivers. So that was his strategy was let's just take tight ends and quarterbacks and Devontae Adams early, and then we'll just load up on rookie receivers. I'm surprised he didn't do the same thing with the running backs. Like he should have taken Keyshawn Vaughn and then taken Zach Moss. I don't know why he didn't do that. Will Disley. Well, based on the tight end run that's happening, I want to grab CJ Uzoma. I don't have any of him yet, but I think he actually has a chance. How many IR spots be reasonable and efficient? How many? Let me give you a follow-up question then. What is your roster construction look like? Like how many players do you have to start at each position? And what are your normal bench slots? So if you guys have a 16-man league, I'm guessing you're normally starting between 8 and 10 players. And if you're starting 8 to 10 players, I would say you're probably going to be comfortable with about 3 IR slots. And reason being is you should already have some people on your bench uh, that you could potentially throw into your starting lineup on a given week. So if you have 3 IR slots, that at least gives you a little bit leeway each week, but you still have to be strategic with it. So it's not going to completely dry up the waiver wire pool because it's only 3 additional guys. But like if you have Alvin Kamara and he gets sick, then at least you can put him on IR and then go grab someone off of the waiver wire that has the chance of getting a few targets that week, like a Chris Thompson that's probably going to be on waivers, or Giovanni Bernard. Um, and then as soon as Alvin Kamara is back, you drop Chris Thompson or Giovanni Bernard. So I think 3 probably ends up being the best for like a standard league. The way that we're planning on doing it in the leagues that I'm in, we're going to do 2 IR slots and we are going to increase the bench by 1 because I think it gives you a little more freedom. Uh, and we play with 9 total. We don't play any defense or kickers though, so it's 9 offensive players and then um, 6 bench slots. So we're going to up it to 7 bench slots and put 2 IR slots that you can use for people with COVID. But I would just take a poll with your league. Like 2 to 3 seem to make the most sense for me. And I guess another thing you could potentially discuss is, do you want them to only be able to be used for people that test positive for COVID, or do you want them to be able to use it for any injury? To me, I'd just say any injury is fine. Like you're gonna have enough pain to deal with. Just don't make it the least amount of restrictions as you possibly can, because this year is gonna be there's gonna be enough hell to have to deal with. So make it as friendly for your league as possible. I'm actually surprised. I feel like at this point in the draft, things are even more barren than they are in the fishbowl draft I'm in right now. We're going into the 19th round, but I feel like there's been more. I just got Steven Sims in the 19th round in the fishbowl draft, and he went in the 17th here. So I don't know. I'm looking at Mohamed Sanu with my last pick. If he ends up falling, he's not very exciting, but I think he puts up enough points on average to at least sneak into my lineup a few times. And the guy that you get in the 20th round, that's all you're really hoping for. But as soon as I say his name, he goes off the board. I'm still getting sniped even in the 19th round. Go figure. Let's take Nelson Aguilar. These are all gross. Yeah, this is very barren at this point. Well, if you actually stuck with me for this entire draft, I thank you. I know it can get pretty boring once you get to the end here and people like to time out in round 19. Doesn't make sense to me, but it's been a pretty good draft. Recap this team again. Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, Darius Geist, Tevin Coleman, Boston Scott, and Damian Harris at running back right now. We have George Kittle, T.J. Hawkinson, and T.J. Uzoma at tight end. We got Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Alan Lazard, and Russell Gage at wide receiver. And we got Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, and Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. One more round. Probably just going to take whichever receiver I have ranked highest once we get to the end. Maybe just take a shot at. Nope, not going to take a shot at Brian Edwards because he is gone. Philip Dorsett is interesting. He could end up having a few good games there with Russell Wilson. Danny Amendola is kind of like Mohamed Sanu, not exciting at all, but probably going to have a few games where he puts up points. Demarcus Robinson had one good game last year. Don't know that we can even count on that again this year. Just take Josh Gordon. Oh, seriously, I just wanted to wrap this draft up. Come on, guys. I feel like as the draft goes on, I become more annoyed at the timer, and a lot of people have been petitioning, asking drafters to reduce the timer, which for the most part, I don't really mind it. Like when you're in a high pressure situation, especially early on, and like I'm not doing high stakes drafts at all, but some of these guys that play leagues where it's like $100 or $500, like I don't want to necessarily be that pressured. But then again, I guess you can always do a slow draft if you don't want to be pressured. So, and then sometimes you have internet problems as well. So I don't really understand the need to move it down. However, I would say once you get past round 10, if you need more than 30 seconds to make your pick, then you got problems. Jimmy Graham, gross. Two more picks. Two more picks. It's actually a steal in the very last round, taking Dario Gumbawale. He's a pretty interesting guy taking in best ball drafts because he'll probably end up getting a lot of targets there in Tampa Bay. Part of the reason why I'm not excited about Ronald Jones But I guess that same argument could go against Keyshawn Vaughn, who I like. So, oh my gosh, guys. All right. As soon as it's our pick, we're going to show them how it's done. All right. As soon as you're on the clock, you take the guy that you want. Or take Josh Reynolds. We'll get a stack. We have our Josh Reynolds and our Jared Goff stack and our TJ Hawkinson and our Matthew Stafford stack. So that rounds it out. 20 rounds actually makes these drafts go a little bit longer. So again, thank you for those of you that actually stuck with me. I'm sure most of you didn't, but hopefully you got something out of this stream. We're going to keep doing these. I got a fun one coming up on Wednesday. We'll actually do a live one with another analyst, and that one has some special settings. But there's our final roster. We've got Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. We've got Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, two Ohio State running back alumni, Darius Geist, Tevin Coleman, Boston Scott, Damian Harris. Wide receiver, we got Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, Terry McLaurin, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Alan Lazard, Russell Gage, and Josh Reynolds. And then we got George Kittle, T.J. Hawkinson, and C.J. Uzoma. So I'm actually pretty happy with how that turned out. The running backs could have been a little bit stronger. Taking George Kittle in the second round definitely weakened the running back a little bit, but I like the overall construction of that team. I think we have a pretty decent shot with this one, especially with some of the crazy strategies that some of these other teams were employing. As long as we get decent points between Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff, not too worried about how this draft is going to go. I don't know if anyone cares. I've actually been monitoring this as well. You can see your ownership somewhere. At least I thought you could. Well, I don't know where that went. Wanted to show you guys what my current ownership was, but it's not here anymore. So, oh well. We'll do that another. Oh, there it is. Okay, ownership. So, for any of you that are still watching, you're curious, as I mentioned, very high on Miles Sanders and DJ Moore. I've gotten a lot of Darius Slayton in these drafts, a lot of Darius Geis. I think they both carry incredible upside in a best ball format. I've actually drafted George Kittle in almost half my drafts as well. Dak Prescott, A.J. Brown, Allen Robinson. Got a lot of Kyler Murray, Robert Woods. So, like I said, I drafted a lot of Jalen Reagor, but I don't think that I'm going to be getting him much more because I was happy taking him in the 13th round. I'm not happy if I have to take him in the 8th round. That's not what I'm looking out to do. 8 Tyler Higbee, 9 Daniel Jones, 8 Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Probably going to back off of that one a little bit more. Zeke, Paris Campbell, Joe Mixon, Russell Wilson, Cam Akers, Deebo Samuel. That was unfortunately before his injury. I haven't really drafted him much since. 6 J.K. Dobbins, Duke Johnson, Saquon Barkley. I don't have a lot of Christian McCaffrey because I very rarely get the 101. But yeah, so that's that. Thank you guys for watching. We'll do some mock drafts. Probably we'll do a mock draft next before we do another best ball draft. Those go a little bit faster and we can control them a little bit better. So, but thank you guys for joining us and we'll see you guys in the next video. Hit that link in the description for free rankings. We've pretty accurate rankings last year. We need to actually submit our rankings into Fantasy Pros. We'll do that this year just to prove how accurate they are compared to the rest of the experts. But the rankings I've been using, and I've been winning championships very consistently over the past couple years, ever since I've been refining my rankings. So pretty excited to be able to share those with you guys this year. So click that link in the description box, sign up, get them for free, and we'll see you guys in the next video, next stream. Talk to you guys later.